What is the connection between Obergefell, gay marriage decision, and in vitro fertilization? The pervasion of culture never stops snowballing into new iterations of evil. What began as gay marriage has turned into sodomized purchasing children with no biological relation to fulfill their fetish to become parents. Non-procreatively. Somehow, I don't know. If marriage is no longer defined by sexual or biological differences, but rather than by desires or how I feel, then marriage can no longer secure children's right to their mother and father. I dive into this like never before on stage recently in front of lawmakers, state legislators from over 33 different states in America from across the nation at the WallBuilders Pro-Family State Legislative Conference in Dallas-Fort Worth recently. This talk is unlike anyone I've given before, and we're hopeful, we believe, we're seeing already fruit of lawmakers ready to go fight and do everything they can to fight the evil industry known as big fertility. We get into all of this today, but first, give us a rating and review to help us reach more people. We really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's such a small thing that you guys do for us, but it's driving the Seth Gruber Show up the charts. iTunes will prioritize it. More people will see it. Your little act of doing that is incredibly helpful. If you have not done that yet, will you go to the iTunes app called Podcast? It's a purple app called Podcast, and hit 5 stars and write in a little review. If you're on Spotify, hit 5 stars and let us know what you think. We really appreciate it. Follow me on Rumble, the Seth Gruber Show on Rumble, to protect this show from the technocrats at Google and YouTube, who I told you a couple months ago axed the whole YouTube channel completely for 2 days. It said we were posting nudity. And then they reversed it and said, oops, you didn't do anything wrong. So to protect this show, subscribe at Rumble. And if you want to join us at the White Rose Resistance as we make the local church great again and give God a reason to show America mercy by mobilizing the bride of Christ locally to stand against baby killing, the sexualization of children, the redefinition of the family, and establish righteousness where they live. If that matters to you, go to thewhiterose.life and support us. We need your help. We have resistance chapters in SoCal, NorCal, Idaho, Dallas, Fort Worth, Denver, Florida, Twin Cities, Maine, New York City, more. We need your help. We're waking up the church. And if that matters to you, I want your help. We need to mobilize these leaders in all these cities to actually connect with the warriors and believers and pastors who are ready to fight for the unborn. You can join us by going to thewhiterose.life and joining as an ally at $35 a month, or air support at $70 a month. Or you can make a generous contribution to The Last Stand film, as that's going to rock the church and remind her who she is, so she joins this fight for children and the family and the next generation. Go to thewhiterose.life. Let's get into it. This is the Seth Gruber Show.
Every time I think of the Bartons, well, first of all, I just absolute pro-life, pro-family American ninjas. When someone needs to create a hall of faith of the last 30 years, the people who kept the global sex cult revolutionaries at bay, who wanted to chop your kids' genitals off and preserve this, and we need the Bartons on page 1. I mean, absolutely incredible. Aren't you so grateful for their leadership? I mean, how many years has this been going on? 22 years or something? My goodness. When I think of the Bartons, I think of this line from one of my favorite pastors, Doug Wilson. He said, desperate times call for the faithful men and not for the careful men. You see, the careful men come later, and they write the biographies of the faithful men, lauding them for their courage. We have way too many careful men in the conservative movement and in the Church of Jesus Christ today, who play it safe, who pull their punches, because they're not actually here to lay it all on the line in this season that we all sense as a last stand. Listen, of course I voted for Trump. It was that or Jezebel Harris. That was not difficult. But like, Trump is not a savior, he's a tourniquet. Like, praise God. Like, and you know, the dogs aren't licking her blood up yet. It's an Old Testament joke. Where's Bob McEwen when I need him? No one laughed at that. But anyways, but like, you know, like we actually deserved Jezebel Harris as a president, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, we actually deserved that because of the bloodshed. Okay, like 700,000 babies are being flushed down the American sewage system every 12 months in America now through legalized abortion. Of course we deserved that wicked woman as the president of the United States. But God showed us mercy, we're on borrowed time, and we do not need more careful men, we need more faithful men. So thank you for being the kind of leaders who want to be faithful in this insane moment, getting fired up and equipped to go back to your home states and establish a theocracy. For whatever, I love this. Like that's like all their favorite, like their greatest fear. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, Dusty Devers is gonna institute a theocracy. It's like, you dummies, we already have a theocracy of secular progressivism, secular materialism, sex cult globalism. You're gonna have a religion that dictates the kind of laws that you have either way. Okay, it's just whose religion? Either like, woo, laissez-faire, French Revolutionary, Epstein, diddle anything religion, or Christendom, baby. Okay? So that's why I love Dusty Devers. And like all of you now, you're gonna go back and you're gonna be Christian nationalists and establish a theocracy, okay? Name it and claim it. So anyways, what am I talking about today? IVF. Let's just get super controversial together, shall we? It's like the one, like every time I have Katie Faust on my show. By the way, if this is enjoyable to you, like, or if you hate me, just throw a tomato, let me know. I don't care anymore. I give 0 rat's bottoms anymore. But if you like this, I have a show called The Seth Gruber Show. We have great conversations. Every time I have Katie Faust on the show, almost every time I lose a donor. For too long, pro-lifers and conservatives, they're like, well, don't we want more babies? So don't we love IVF? No, we don't actually. Like, how you do things matters. We don't just want to spit out as many babies as possible. I want, like, a young dude meeting a young girl, and they're like, oh, like, you actually know what gender you are, and you love Jesus. Let's get married and have let's spit babies out like the Catholics, and just send out a bunch of little dragon slayers to go establish a Christian theocracy. Like, so that's the way I want it done. I actually don't want babies being made through IVF. How you do things matters. So I want to get into all of this, and that was my intro. I just wanted to get you guys laughing, have a little bit of fun first. So that's what happens when you're homeschooled. After, you know, there's these moments sort of in culture and history where, like, your enemy's response to that thing tells you everything you need to know about them. Okay, good. That landed well. It was better than the Old Testament jokes. Okay, so obviously, COVID scamdemic was one of those. The overturning of Roe v. Wade was one of those. Man, we learned a lot about people who really were, right? Like struggle shows the man. Conflict shows the man. And when Roe v. Wade got overturned, I was like, wow, now I know who all the big Eva bought and sold Rick Warren, Andy Stanley, when I run out of toilet paper, I pull their books off of my wife and I's bookshelf, cowards who are good for nothing. And then I know who the warriors are that I want to connect myself and my ministry with to lay it all on the line for the babies, for Jesus and for Charlie. Hoorah, okay? Men don't follow titles, they follow courage. And then I also know who are the leftist, sex cult, globalist demoniacs? Like, so overturning of Roe v. Wade was like, it provided a lot of clarity. And here's a story that a lot of people forgot. It was one of those, here's how, you know, they start manifesting their inner, like, rainbow legions when something, like, really good happens for righteousness in the culture. The IVF, big fertility industry, lost their ever-loving minds. And you know what they were saying? Here, actually, this was just a doctor at Northwestern in Illinois. I'm afraid for my IVF patients, doctor says after Roe v. Wade dismantled. Anyone tracking with me? No? No Celsiuses? You didn't have a latte before you came in? What are they telling you? They're saying, oh, shiitake mushrooms. The overturning of Roe v. Wade, that impacts my big fertility, because if babies are babies, and there's no such thing as a human non-person, and all humans are persons, then the way we treat children in our big fertility industry is an assault on their rights, and so the overturning of Roe versus Wade is a threat to the big fertility industry. Oh, for conservatives and Christians who could see how connected the value and dignity of the unborn child is to the big fertility, IVF, third-party reproductive technology spaces. Their response was very telling. And then you remember Alabama? Do you remember the story? It was awesome. They ruled that frozen embryos are extrauterine children, so they banned IVF temporarily, and then Trump, I think he called himself the big daddy of IVF. It was one of the most, I'm like, dude, don't ever say that phrase again. That's so freaking weird. And he's like, oh, we need to make IVF great again and fund it and make it super cheap. Like, yes, I will applaud. I am Trump's loudest cheerleader when he does good things, and I'm his most brutal critic when he does stupid, asinine things. Because I'm not accountable to the GOP. We're accountable to the GOD. Okay? And the Republican establishment needs to fear your voice, and particularly that of the blood-bought bride of Christ, who's forgotten who she is as the moral conscience of a people. And so anyways, this guy, Paul Amato, you probably don't even know his name. He's the president of the American Society for Reproductive Medicine. And he responded to the Alabama ruling that temporarily basically said, IVF is illegal because those are people. Those little babies are people. Here's what he said. By insisting that these very different biological entities are legally equivalent, the best state-of-the-art fertility care will be made unavailable to the people of Alabama. No healthcare provider will be willing to provide treatments if those treatments may lead to civil or criminal charges. This is everything, guys. This is amazing. He's admitting that if preborn entities are human beings indistinguishable in value and dignity from the infant or the toddler, then the entire industry of big fertility is going to be destroyed. That's right. Darn right. Because human beings have dignity and rights, so it's wrong to mass produce them in labs for experiments and for backup plans for infertile couples. It's wrong to perpetually freeze them. It's wrong to create countless humans like sea monkeys. Do you remember those stupid little kits you ordered? Or was that just millennials? Look at little sea monkeys. Yeah, that's wrong to treat human beings like that, as sacrificial lambs so you can get that one baby to implant. The only question is, brothers and sisters, will conservatives help Paul Amato at the American Society for Reproductive Medicine realize his fears? Will we exercise the testicular fortitude and courage to carry our right ideas to the logical conclusion that the left so fears? I hope so.
It's time to stop sitting on the sidelines. This American revival we're experiencing, record level church attendance, Bible sales, because of Charlie Kirk, by the way, needs your unapologetic voice. So mark your calendar to join our second annual Life or Death Con on January 22nd, 2026 in Washington, D.C. It's a one-day charge to awaken, equip, and send out believers who are ready to make a real difference in our culture. Because for too long, the church has watched from a distance, letting the Charlie Kirks and others fight the good fight for truth and the family and the unborn in the public square. The battles raging around us, and the church has been bench warming. But the tide is turning, and your voice, your courage, and your leadership are essential to what's coming next in our country and in our culture. So we're bringing out the boldest Christian voices and leaders for you to lead you into the culture war with wisdom and clarity. Steve Dace, Megan Basham, Abby Johnson, Dr. George Grant, Nolene Cedra, AJ Hurley, and more. Then the very next day, march shoulder to shoulder with us, the White Rose Resistance, at the annual March for Life on January 23rd in Washington, D.C. Get your ticket for Life or Death Con by going to lifeordeathcon.com, lifeordeathcon.com, and use code Seth, my name, for 20% off your ticket. I'll see you in Washington, D.C. on January 22nd.
IVF is morally wrong. You want to know why? Oh, but Seth, that's so mean. Because we want more babies. And surely, how could you say that to a husband, wife, married? They're not doing weird sex stuff. They're not homos. They're not transgender bending. They're just normal people. They have infertility. Isn't that a wonderful thing to want children? I don't really like your tone and how you're talking to this audience today, Seth. We need to weep with those who weep and be part of how they're feeling. Yes, listen, I get it. My wife and I have many friends who struggle with infertility. Like, I can't imagine how difficult that is. But we as Christians and we as conservatives need to be the adults. And being an adult means putting the rights of children before your own desires and preferences. So we can hear that, we can sit in that space with people, but how you do things matters. Oh, but we'll just keep it just for the heterosexual married couples who are infertile. So I'm down with you, Seth. I know probably everything you're about to say because I've listened to Katie Faust, and she's much nicer than you. But everything you're about to say, I agree with, Seth, but let's just keep, you can't say that it's wrong for the heterosexual married couple who are struggling with infertility. Yeah, right. You think you're going to ban every other exercise of IVF and third-party reproductive technologies, but get that one little carve-out for the heterosexual married couple who are struggling with infertility? You think the left's not going to blow that door wide open? Okay. Why is IVF morally wrong? Why should you state legislators go back to your states and do everything you can to ban it? Let's talk about it. Okay? Only got one clap there, so it's okay. I don't care. I don't care. I love Tim Burton. If he never has me back, it's fine. I'll still love him. Number one, it can violate a child's right to life. Okay, so it's almost impossible to know how many babies are created through IVF every year, how many are discarded, how many are sex selective, how many are perpetually frozen. One of the things I want to encourage you guys to do, actually, is passing legislation that demands transparency from big fertility, from IVF labs. It would be very helpful for us in the conservative movement and the pro-life movement to be able to have the data on exactly how many babies are being created through big fertility. Like, just think about this for a second. It's 2025 and we have no idea. I'm going to give you some rough numbers of how I think we can get to a sort of a guesstimate, but how insane is that? I've been fighting abortion my whole life. Here I am at the Barton Pro-Family Legislative Network, and I can't even tell you how many are frozen, how many are discarded, how many are homos being created, how many are single dudes, single women, throuple gay dudes, or just beautifully heterosexual married infertile couples. What are the percentage breakdowns? I don't know. That would be a great law to go pass back at your state. Let's get transparency in numbers from all. Oh, how many people are traveling from out of the country to get American sperm and oocytes and then rent a poor woman's uterus as the surrogate and then take that baby back home? How many are foreign coming to? I don't know. So if you're like, well, Seth, tell me what to do. There's a great law you could pass. You could try to get passed in your state. I want all the transparency in the numbers from big fertility and IVF labs. Okay, anyways, so yeah, it's the same girl. She must like me. So 7 to 8% of babies created in labs through IVF will be born alive. That's our best estimate. Let me say that again. Only 7 to 8% of the babies conceived through IVF will ever be born. What? So 93% of eternal souls, like full-blown human beings, are die because of the IVF industry? That seems to be what the numbers suggest. 92% or so will be discarded right out the gate because they're not viable, they're not good quality, they're the wrong sex, or preliminary markers that are not advantageous to the parents. Margaret Sanger's spirit is alive and well. IVF clinics do not report the exact numbers of embryos that are killed in their care, but clinics normally extract between 10 and 15 eggs for one treatment. According to the IVF clinic chain Illume Fertility, if the clinic extracts 12 eggs, about 80%, 9 or 10 eggs, will be viable, and about 80% of viable eggs will successfully fertilize to create embryos, making about 7 or 8 embryos per patient. The CDC estimates that more than 238,000 patients attempted IVF in 2021. If clinics created between 7 and 8 embryos for every patient, that would yield about 1.6 to 1.9 million babies every 12 months. Despite these high numbers, fewer than 100,000 were ever brought to term, which suggests that somewhere between 1.5 and 1.8 million embryos created through IVF were never born. That means that twice as many babies are killed and die through IVF than from legalized abortion every 12 months in America. So you're hearing the numbers about 1 million a year. Post-Dobbs, might be almost 3 million babies who lose their lives every 12 months in the land of the free and the home of the brave, between the abortion industry and big fertility. Yeah, we deserved Jezebel Harris as a president. Alternatively, the abortion industry claimed about 985,000 lives from July 2022 through June 2023. IVF is not a child-friendly process. And I know you know someone. It's just sweet, infertile married couple, and they only created one at a time. That's not by and large what's happening, and there's no way you're going to only get a legal carve-out for the only maybe ethically justified way to use IVF. There's no way you're going to do that. The only solution is to ban it. So, point one. It's a really fun talk, right? It's like, boy, are you going to be hated back in your states if you channel just half of this. But we're here for you. We love you, okay? I'll come give you my cell phone number. Dusty Devers, that guy wrote a book on IVF. That guy's a baller, okay? We're here to support you, okay? The Bartons, Bob McEwen, whatever you need. I know that it's easy for me to come up here and say all these things, but you're like, Seth, I got to go draft this legislation back at home. Easy for you to say. I get it, okay? We're here for you. Call me anytime. I'll give you my cell phone number. Number two. It can violate a child's right to not be frozen. Oh my gosh, pro-lifers believe that human beings shouldn't be perpetually frozen? Yeah, we think that's pretty screwed up. And I would apply that to any infant or toddler. Color me shocked. Pro-lifers don't think that human beings should be frozen. This is not Star Wars. Han Solo's not coming back. Okay. Did you know we have nearly 1 million frozen babies in IVF clinics in America right now? These are souls on ice. Souls on ice. Estimates are that 20 to 40% of them have been abandoned. 20 to 40% of them, their parents they're not coming back to thaw them and try to attempt implantation. They will be discarded. Of course, not all the embryos even survive the thawing process. Did you know that? And not all those who survive the thawing process pass the genetic test for fit babies that the parents want. And not all the embryos who pass the genetic test will successfully implant. That's evil. That's wrong. It needs to stop right now. Number three, why is IVF morally wrong? Why do we need to ban it? It violates a child's right to their mother and father. Here's where it gets messy, huh? In modernity, in our sexually obsessed society where we're trying to redefine everything, redefine the family, redefine what a parent means, redefine what innocence means, redefines what children's means, redefine what it means to be an American. I forgot this clip from Sleepy Joe. I just watched this clip the other day of Biden. He was like, no one can tell you what an American is. What even is it? Do you even remember that clip? I was like, I forgot he even said that. We're having such an identity crisis in this country. Well, I guess here's why I'm saying this. If you can't get the right to life right, you won't get any other rights right. I guess I'm not surprised that we have a generation so confused about who they are, why they're here, when we've been undermining the foundations of Western civilization for decades now by slaughtering children in the name of radical feminism and telling the next generation, you can't be free unless you have the right to murder your posterity. Do you remember when Roe v. Wade got overturned? They were doing these like marches and nights of rage and burning down pregnancy centers and pro-life ministries. And then they were interrupting church services. By the way, I found this really interesting. They didn't really interrupt Protestant church service. I'm a Protestant. They were interrupting Catholic church services. I just thought that was interesting. I thought that was an indictment on the Protestant church, that the only people that the radical feminazis with Joseph's multi-technicolored coat of hair targeted as a threat to orgasms without responsibility were the papists. I thought that was a damning critique on the Protestant church. If I'm a Protestant pastor, I'm begging the Lord that the left views me as a threat enough to interrupt my Sunday morning worship services after the overturning of Roe versus Wade because they've attached the loss of child sacrifice with my preaching and stewarding and shepherding as a pastor. I thought that was a stinging rebuke on the Protestant church. But what were they chanting when they were interrupting church services? Without this basic right, women can't be free. abortion on demand and without apology. So freedom itself is intrinsically married and tied to the right to slay your child through all 9 months of pregnancy for any reason or no reason at all. We're not free unless we can do that. So it's the Christian nationalists that are the fascists because they're threatening our right to murder babies in the womb. You're taking away my freedom to murder children. Whoa. And now we have a pro-life movement who can't even be unified on big fertility and the criminalization of abortion. We have a lot of cleanup work to do, brothers and sisters. And this room right here, if you channel that David Barton, Tim Barton ninja that lives deep in each one of your hearts, this room could change America. Oh my goodness. Like, I'm looking at all of you. Like, we forget sometimes the power of 300 or 400. What is it, 400 something? I'm excited about what you guys are going to be going back and doing in your states. So where was I? It violates a child's right to their mother and father. This is another thing that it's a big statistical black hole. I can't tell you how much of the LGBTQ LMNOPI, my name is Legion movement, uses IVF to deny children their mother or father. I don't know the numbers. Go pass legislation to get those numbers for me, please. I would really enjoy those numbers. But the best I can tell you is in 2019, the New York Times said that self-identifying LGBTQ people make up 5 to 10% of fertility clinic patients. 5 to 10% of fertility clinic patients in 2019. Has the trans mob and their obsession with all things weird increased at all since 2019? A little bit. So if that was 5 to 10% in 2019, if we're just, being conservatives, making estimated guesses, what do you think it is now? 20, 40, 50? Yeah, it's got to be at least 25. I would say between 25 and 45 would be kind of my guess. Of non-procreative relationships, because nature is a bigot, who use IVF to intentionally deny children their mother and their father. Of course, IVF and big fertility are a threat to a child's right to their mother and their father. IVF is first used to create the baby that the two lesbians or two gays purchase in order to put in one of the lesbians' wombs, denying the child a father, or put in a surrogate's womb by the gay dudes, denying the child their birth mother and their bio mother and any social mother moving forward. Let me be very clear. In vitro fertilization and big fertility or third-party reproductive technologies, it can split mother into 3 separate and purchasable women. The bio mother, so the gametes, right? The birth mother, and the social mother, the woman who raises the kid. I think those should be the same woman. And I think when you rip biological identity, biological truths from metaphysical reality and truths, moral chaos always ensues. By the way, you can blame Obergefell for most of this. Uh-oh, he's going there? That's right. We took Roe v. Wade, now we're taking gay marriage. And I was so frustrated. 2 days ago? With the chick who said we're not going to look at that decision? Marriage was redefined so that biological differences and complementarity are no longer the standard. And so if marriage is not based on sexual or biological differences, but rather on desires, hey, so I know what I feel, then marriage can no longer secure children's right to their mother and father. Redefining marriage redefined parenthood. This is one of the most important things I came here this afternoon to tell you. Redefining marriage redefined parenthood. The results of this is that thousands of children are now intentionally being denied their mother or their father, or in some cases both. There was this insane bonkers story from New York, maybe 2019. And it was 2 gay dudes living together, and then they split up. And so the non-biologically related sodomite sued. Are we not allowed to use biblical language anymore? Sued the former sodomite lover, who was the actual biological father of the two twins, because they're not living together anymore. And a New York court chose to remove the kids from the biological father and give them to the non-biologically related, no longer sexually in a relationship, former ex-boyfriend. What? The freaking hell? I'm sorry, that's the closest you'll ever hear Seth Gruber to cursing. But seriously, what the hell? If that doesn't make you want to storm the gates of hell and raise holy hell against the spirit of the age and his acolytes in the culture of death, I don't know what will. And guess how the judge argued for that decision? By citing Obergefell v. Hodges. He argued that if marriage is no longer based on biology and the needs of children, then neither is the definition of a parent. So, do you trust me anymore now when I say redefining marriage? Redefined parenthood. Here's a crazy example. I think this might have happened. I have so many stupid homeschool notes when I travel and speak the country, so I can't remember if this story actually happened, but there's no reason that it could not happen given our current culture and the laws. So just buckle up and you're gonna be like, okay. Two lesbians who are pretending to be married need sperm and egg. They get sperm from a random donor. By the way, there's no such thing as sperm donors or egg donors. Money always exchanges hands. Stop using the phrase sperm donor and egg donor. Okay. But they don't like the risks entailed with egg retrieval, the two lesbians in New York City. So they buy an egg from a random female. They fertilize a baby from the gametes purchased from total strangers. But because they love fitness and flat abs, and neither of them wants to subject their body to pregnancy, they pay a female surrogate to implant their baby in. Now, this baby would be denied their biological mother, their biological father, their birth mother, and any father at all, and raised by two complete female strangers. I don't have categories for the culture war anymore, unless I read my Bible and I understand that all human conflict is ultimately theological. And we're facing an ancient serpent and lion that prowls around looking for children to devour. Children are his favorite victim. To target, to devour, to murder, to destroy, and to corrupt. Because if you get the minds of the next generation, you'll control them forever. Notice how the allegedly simple redefinition of marriage resulted in creating children to intentionally deny them their mother or father and be bought and sold in the multi-billion-dollar industry known as big fertility. This is why my friend Katie Faust says we fought a civil war to end the practice of buying and selling people, and now we're bringing it back in the name of progress. Oh, Seth, that's not really fair. They're not buying babies. They're buying gametes. There's no baby yet. No, we understand what's happening. As if the timing of a contract can change the ethical or moral nature of the act involved. Children have a natural right to their mother and father. And in horrible circumstances where that's not the possibility, they do have a right to a mother and a father. Sometimes parents die. Sometimes there's orphans. Sometimes someone adopts them. Hallelujah, that's the heart of the gospel, brothers and sisters. You too have been adopted into the kingdom of heaven. We should be adopting all the babies. But that is fundamentally different than big fertility, because in adoption, mature, loving adults try to mitigate some of the pain that the kid went through because they lost their parents. In adoption, we're coming alongside heartbreak, trying to make it a little bit better. in IVF and third-party reproductive technologies, we arrange motherlessness and we arrange fatherlessness and we pay for it. That is not the same as adoption. And anyone telling you it is an idiot. So naturally, the best social science we have behind family structures shows that children fare best with a mother and a father. It's so funny watching the legacy news media. I call them journalistic prostitutes for the culture of death, who for years and years fully admitted that children need moms and dads until the homo movement, Prop 8 in California, and later Obergefell. Remember Barack Hussein Obama's Father's Day sermon from 2008? Does anyone remember that? He sounds like what we would today call a conservative. It's the most insane thing to go listen to. He's like, children need structure, families, parents, but the most important figure in a child's life is their father. I'm like, this is Obama. The gay president who lit the White House. No, I didn't mean Big Mike. I meant like, because he lit the White House in rainbow. That's all I meant. The White House rainbow. That's why he's the gay president. That's all I meant. I don't know how to recover from that one. Anyway, and he's like, fathers are the #1 predictor of success or failure. The absence of a father guarantees crime and drug use and depression. I'm like, this is Obama? So notice how all the lefties and the libs and the legacy news media all on board with affirming the social science that we've had for decades, that children fare best in every category when they have their mom and their dad living under the same roof in a low conflict marriage. And then you get the gay movement and suddenly, what's the phrase? Any two will do. The same people who told you for decades, children need a mother and a father. Here comes the sodomy rainbow cult, and they're like, actually, 2 lesbians in my new Harvard study shows that kids do better with 2 mommies. How did the social science change all of a sudden? It didn't. That's retarded. By the way, have you seen people using that word more now that Trump got reelected? Everyone's saying retarded again now that Trump, I'm like, wow. I mean, I knew Anthony Breitbart's line that culture is downstream, that politics is downstream of culture, but I guess culture is downstream of politics too. And that's an important reminder when you go back to your states to contend for life, liberty, and righteousness, isn't it? Because we've been told for so long by like Andy Stanley. By the way, you know Andy Stanley's church is using pronouns in the Sunday school classes at their kids' church at North Point Bible? No, I'm dead serious. Okay, so like we were told by the Andy Stanley sort of like, you know, homo-adjacent Christian crowd that you shouldn't do politics and all the work you do is stupid because we're just called to love people, and once the heart changes, then the culture changes. Well, obviously, politics is downstream of culture, right? But it's also a two-way street. Culture is also downstream of politics. Everyone using the word retarded again is a great example of that. By the way, you don't call retarded people retarded. You call your friends retarded, okay? Just so we're being clear. Okay. Oh, you know another example of this? Do you remember Saturday Night Live, right after Trump got reelected? They did a bit mocking gay couples as baby thieves. Raise of hands, who remembers that one? Tim Barton raised his hand backstage. Yeah, they're like sitting there, it's like two heterosexual couples, so 4 people and then 2 gay dudes, and they're like, have a baby? And they're like, where did you get the baby? And they're like, she chose us. And it's like, what? They're like, we were with you at the bar last night. You said you were going to the Bulge Festival afterwards. You didn't have a baby. This was on Saturday Night Live, folks. And they go, did you steal the baby? And the gay couple goes, we like to think she stole us. And the heterosexual couples on SNL are like, but did you steal the baby? Okay, question. Would Saturday Night Live have done a bit mocking gay couples as baby thieves if Kamala Harris was elected last November? You know, right? You know the answer's no. Isn't that a great example of culture being downstream of political changes? It's a two-way street. And I know some of you get so discouraged by your local flatulent, impotent pastors who won't lift a finger to stand up for the family and the children and the social fabric from those who have declared war on you, your family, your nation, and the very freedoms that they hide behind. I know that if the pulpits would be ablaze with righteousness again, everything would change. Don't hold your breath. Contend for righteousness politically, and maybe the culture starts to change, and pastors go find their testicles again. Okay? It's a really important reminder. So, man, I feel way too at home with you guys. This is getting a little bit out of hand. So Mark Regnerus did this awesome study from 2012 called How Different Are the Adult Children of Parents Who Have Same-Sex Relationships? Based on large, random, and nationally representative samples. Here were the findings. Compared to children of parents, at least one of whom had a gay or lesbian relationship, those reared by their married biological parents were found to have fared better on dozens of indicators and fared worse on none. Go check out Mark Regnerus' work. It's beautiful. A study published by the left-leaning research institution, Child Trends, here's what they said. Left-leaning. It is not simply the presence of two parents, any two will do. It's not that, but the presence of two biological parents that seems to support children's development. Research clearly demonstrates that family structure matters for children. And the family structure that helps children the most is a family headed by two biological parents in a low-conflict marriage. But watch this now. It's not just an anti-gay way that we're using this stat. It's compared to any other familial arrangement. So watch. Children in single-parent families, children born to unmarried mothers, and children in step families or cohabiting relationships faced higher risks of poor outcomes. There is thus value, they concluded, for children in promoting strong, stable marriages between biological parents. How quickly things have changed. We live in a culture and society, my dear friends, that doesn't care about the rights of children inside or outside the womb. All we care about are our desires and our wants and what will satisfy us. So we can now purchase a child's genetic mother or father from a catalog, custom order the kid, and then implant it in the woman. That's a huge problem.
But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor of the Seth Gruber Show, Every Life Diaper Company. Every Life is America's pro-life diaper company. It is pretty sad when you have to say that. You would think like, wait, diaper companies, those are baby companies. So like, they got to all be pro-life, right? Wrong. Most of the American diaper companies, baby brands, are pro-abortion. Many of them are pro-trans as well, which is weird because when people go trans, they tend to not procreate. So either way, it's like, why would you support things that cause you to sell less of your product? That's what the woke mind virus does. That's why our Christian friends who love the Lord and the unborn in America at Every Life Diaper Company started this company. We have to shop in alignment with our values. No more complaining about the woke culture if you're still going to Target every other week. Okay, no more Hellabella, no more Huggies. Go to everylife.com. Use promo code Seth10 for 10% off your first order. Get your wipes, diapers, shampoos, soaps, lotions, and a new fem care line, all from people who give part of their profits to pregnancy resource centers. Free diapers, supporting mothers having babies who need help. Everylife.com, promo code Seth10 for 10% off your first order, and let them know that we sent you. Thank you, Every Life.
Do you know that we've studied children who have been created through sperm and egg donation? We're getting some of the newest studies on this because all of this, we're kind of in the wild, wild west of technology now, aren't we? And they disproportionately struggle with alcoholism, mistrust of their parents, and overwhelmingly struggle with identity issues to a degree that not even adoptees experience. Did you know this? There seems to be something, friends, listen to me. There seems to be something about deliberately and commercially severing a child from their mother and father that destabilizes them even beyond adoptees who also struggle with identity issues. That's wild. Many donor-conceived children admit as adults that they always knew something was wrong. I've read the testimonials. And this was before they learned that one or both of their parents were actually not their biological parents. One woman said, a donor-conceived girl who was raised in a family where one of the parents was biological and one was a biological stranger. And she said, kids know. Before she was ever told that she was donor-conceived. Who remembers the 1960s and 70s baby scoop era with all the flower children getting pregnant? Did you know that there was still a taboo attached to being pregnant outside of wedlock? I know 73 came shortly after, and the abortion numbers exploded. Oh, another example of culture being downstream of politics. The median average of annual babies killed in America in the late 60s was 100,000. By 1975 and 1976, it was 1.7 and 1.8 million. Another example. But, Woodstock era, all the flower children, the teenage, young 20s, hippies, they're getting pregnant. There was still a stigma attached to being pregnant out of wedlock. So do you know what happened with a lot of those? It was called the baby scoop era. There's a title for it. So a lot of those young girls were shipped off to live with relatives until the baby was born, and they were adopted out to other white families, often in the same state, and they were closed adoptions, and they had no idea. There should have been no way for those kids to know that the mom and dad raising them wasn't their mom and dad. Are you following me? And you know what one of the most fascinating aspects of the baby scoop era is? Even those kids often admitted to knowing that something was off. Something was wrong. I'm not home. I'm not where I belong. This was the first time in human history that we saw large-scale genealogical bewilderment. How many Hallmark movies and Hollywood movies have been made about a young teenager or young adult girl or boy who finds out that they're adopted at 17, 18, 19, 20, and they go on a journey, right? They go on a journey to find their bio parents. We want to know where we came from. And this is why all of this is so spiritual. Brothers and sisters, we all want to know our Father. Our hearts will be lost and stumbling through the desert until we find the way back to the Father. That's spiritual. It's how we were made. It's as true in the biological realm as it is in the spiritual realm. Kids know. But now we've got genealogical bewilderment at a level that we could have never predicted 20 years ago with reproductive technology situations. IVF has also been one of the greatest gifts to the pedophiles and child groomers. Let's just go there. Why stalk and target a toddler to kidnap and rape them when you can buy a baby and declare yourself the legal parent? Yeah, that's happening in the West right now. A single male or single female can buy male or female gametes or both, create a baby through IVF, pay a surrogate to grow the baby, and then take the baby home to sexually abuse them. And I see a story probably every 2 months now where that's happening. What? How is that a thing? How is that happening, friends, in the land of the free and the home of the brave? Like, I don't have categories for this anymore. This is so demonic. Oh, wait, I guess if abortion is healthcare, then selling children is capitalism. Oh, yeah. That'll preach. If children are commodities whose dissection and vivisections can be bought and sold, then what's wrong with selling them outside of the womb? The abortion mindset has taught an entire generation to view human beings as pounds of flesh. For our viewing enjoyment on OnlyFans, to be injected with experimental drugs, to be chemically castrated and then sold drugs for life to enrich pharmaceutical companies, or to be shot in the neck if they threaten your decadent orgasmic lifestyle. By the way, if you and your spouse want to adopt, I assume you know that you have to clear intense background checks and home visits to ensure that this adoptee is going to have a safe and loving home. But in big fertility, the only check that has to clear for anyone to become a parent is the check to the bank. No background checks required for would-be pedophiles who masturbate their sperm out, buy a woman's gametes, and pay a poor surrogate to gestate their kid and take the baby home. No background checks required in America. How is this happening in our country? Why do I keep banging this drum? Because what's the one floodgate that allows all of that? IVF. Katie Faust says, babies are the subjects of rights, not the objects of rights. They have a right to be known and loved by their mother and father. They have a right to not be commodified, designed, and purchased. Okay. You guys, can you handle one more point? Why is IVF morally wrong? Number 4. It is laying the groundwork for the complete redefinition and obliteration of the family through biological socialism. What the heck is that? I'm from gay California, which is probably why I don't wear socks. And I left in 2022 for Kansas to be closer to the in-laws. But I was at Pastor Jack Hibbs' church for an event in 2023. And I told this story, and people didn't believe it. I had to get all the data. This was so insane. In 2023, by the way, Newsom already signed this bill. So this is not conjecture anymore. This is law in California. They passed SB 729 that redefines infertility to provide insurance coverage to gay people in non-procreative relationships who cannot have children because nature is a bigot, so that they can be reimbursed by insurance companies for IVF treatments, and they're calling this fertility equality. Fertility equality! How does the left argue for every new iteration of the secular moral revolution? It's an equality issue. Abortion, women need to be able to kill their babies to be equal to men. Every argument for whatever the new insane demonic agenda is, it's an equality issue. By the way, the bill's sponsor, Caroline Menjivar, is a lesbian, by the way. How convenient. How convenient. So, conflict of interest. Here's a bill that will let me get kids and not have to pay for it. Many insurance plans will cover your IVF costs, all the more so now with Trump, unfortunately, if you meet the definition of infertility. And how has infertility been defined historically, by the way? I'll give it to you. Unprotected heterosexual intercourse for 12 months that does not result in a pregnancy or live birth. But now even infertility has been redefined by the California communists. Your insurance premiums in California will skyrocket because the people having anal sex thinks it's discriminatory that they have to pay out of their own pocket for expensive IVF treatment so that they can intentionally deny a child their mother or father or both? Fertility equality. Because nature is a bigot. Nature discriminates against me because I'm in a relationship that doesn't produce babies. So the insurance company needs to subsidize that. welcome to California. Conservative writer Daniel McCarthy has dubbed this biological socialism. Check this out. Here's what he writes. This will blow your mind. He says, the old industrial socialism meant asserting control over the means of production. Biological socialism is when the government manages the means of reproduction. Biological socialism, like the old-fashioned kind, aims to equalize conditions. In this case, the conditions that apply to natural families and artificially commissioned ones. The new biological socialism doesn't just argue that economic conditions are unfair. It argues that nature itself is discriminatory and must be corrected. But that requires comprehensive systems of control, including price controls for fertility. While employers and religious conservatives have obvious economic and moral objections to legislation like SB 729 in California, there's a fundamental political problem as well. If more and more families over time owe their existence to such laws, then the very idea of family will cease to be natural or a matter of immemorial custom. The most basic social unit of self-responsibility in American life, the unit that forms individual character itself, will be subordinated to political collective responsibility. It will be the government that forms society and not the other way around. When insurance companies compensate for misfortune, that's one thing. But when the misfortune is not truly out of one's control, when biologically fertile people do not engage in procreative sex, insurance mandates become an instrument of social engineering for redistributing money and responsibility alike. A self-governing people arises from self-governing institutions. Above all, the family. And families arise from fertility. If California replaces the biological laws of fertility with its own political preferences, it will remove the family from the realm of custom and nature, which no one controls, and socialize the very building block of society. Karl Marx was not thinking big enough. Why expropriate anything else when you can seize the factories that make men and women? Biological socialism. So as I land the plane, in fancy language, what does this mean? The family will cease to be a natural institution where the next generation is raised by the two individuals who created them, giving them genealogical identity and a mother and father duo that we all need to launch effectively into this broken world and make it better. Instead, the state will force nature to be tolerant and equal and remake the family structure in America in the name of fertility equality. So what am I saying? When we fail to respect the natural world in our laws, when we attempt to recreate God's world in our own legislative image and force nature to bend to our liking, we don't become creators, we become destroyers. We thought we were helping more people be free. Free to love whom they choose, have children how they want, and identify according to their inner voice, Legion. But this freedom wasn't really free. It was a deception. It was a freedom that dissolved freedom. The more we try to free ourselves from the natural boundaries of God's created order, the more enslaved we will become and the more chaos we will create. And in that chaos, the state inevitably grows more and more powerful to restore some semblance of order or to just manage the chaos. Every time we try to tinker with human nature and God's created order to expand our freedom, we only relegate more power to the state to define for us what we used to allow God's created world, biological realities, to define for us. So, now that you're so encouraged and optimistic about the state of the West, let me leave you with a line from my favorite dead papist, G.K. Chesterton, who said, "We're perpetually being told that what is wanted is strong men who will just do something. But what is really wanted is strong men who will undo something, because that will be the real test of strength."
Thank you guys for tuning in today. You couldn't tell from when the recording cut out from my talk, but we had probably a 30-second standing ovation. We were very grateful to the state legislator lawmakers there and humbled by the Lord for such a wonderful opportunity to fire up the people passing laws to protect children in their states. Will you send this talk of mine to a friend or to a family member or to another pro-life friend who is all about IVF? Too many pro-lifers don't understand why IVF is so problematic and why it needs to be banned. Would you do that for me? Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm Seth Gruber, and this is The Seth Gruber Show.